15. Marvin Gaye, Your Unchanging Love, 1967. The summer of 1967 gave us more Motown hits than most people could keep track of, and tucked just a little off to the side was this gem from Marvin Gaye, Your Unchanging Love. Released on Motown's Tamla label, it didn't explode like Ain't No Mountain High Enough, or I Heard It Through the Grapevine, so a lot of people let it slip into the back of their memory. But listen closely, and you can hear the next version of Marvin starting to form. The arrangement has that classic Motown swing. Tambourine bright as sunlight through a kitchen window, bass rolling warm and steady, the Funk Brothers locking in like they always did. And over all of it, Marvin's voice glides with a quiet ache, steady, yearning, hopeful, even when he sounds tired. Stories from the sessions say Marvin was pulled between the polished hit machine Motown wanted and the deeper, more personal artist he knew he could be. You can almost hear that tension in the breaths between his lines. Today, Your Unchanging Love feels like Marvin on the verge of transformation, a treasure sitting just outside the spotlight. And speaking of overlooked gems, the next one brings the groove straight back to the dance floor. 14. The Bar-Kays, Soul Finger, 1967. In the spring of '67, Soul Finger was like a joyful explosion straight out of Memphis. The Bar-Kays were barely out of high school, freshly signed to Stax and working under the mentorship of Booker T and the MGs. What started as a playful warm-up riff in the studio turned into a record that sounded like a whole block party pressed onto vinyl. Somebody said, "Let's lay it down." They brought in neighborhood kids to shout and cheer over the groove, and suddenly, you had a track that felt like summer on a street corner. Horns blaring, guitars popping, drums driving everything forward. No lyrics, no love story, just pure movement. You can picture it spinning at a basement party, the floorboards shaking, people dancing like tomorrow doesn't exist. Tragically, that burst of joy came just months before the plane crash that killed most of the band, along with Otis Redding, turning Soul Finger into both a celebration and a memorial. If that was pure dance floor fire, the next song turns the lights way down low. 13. Johnny Taylor, Ain't That Loving You, For More Reasons Than One, 1967. By 1967, Johnny Taylor had just settled into the Stax family, carrying that gospel-soaked voice into a new chapter of Southern soul. Ain't That Loving You, For More Reasons Than One, wasn't one of the giant crossover smashes of the decade, which is exactly why so many people forgot how powerful it really is. Listen again, and it feels like a slow-burning confession whispered across decades. The production has that warm, slightly gritty Stax texture, horns glowing like the last streetlight on a quiet block, organ humming like a steady heartbeat, drums sitting back as if they're listening along with you. Johnny sings like a man who's loved hard, lost some of it, and come back wiser. No theatrics, just grown folks' soul, honest and unforced. Tracks like this didn't always dominate the charts, but they dominated late-night radio and kitchen speakers. If that was intimate and smoky, the next one brings a little swagger and a whole lot of sweet soul charm. 12. Stevie Wonder, I'm Wondering, 1967. By 1967, Stevie Wonder wasn't Little Stevie anymore, but he hadn't quite become the full-on visionary of the 70s either. I'm Wondering, released on Tamla, sits perfectly in that in-between space. It didn't climb as high as monsters like I Was Made to Love Her, so a lot of listeners let it fade into the background of memory. But when you really listen, you can hear the Stevie we'd all come to know starting to peek through. The song is bright and playful, almost like a smile set to melody. Hand claps bouncing, horns swinging, chord changes that feel just a little more adventurous than standard Motown fare. Stevie's voice sparkles with youthful sincerity. Underneath that joy, though, there's a tiny ache. A young man who isn't quite sure where his love stands. Asking questions he's not confident in asking out loud. This is Motown. Cafeteria conversations. Tape. The sound of an artist emerging into himself. We've had sweetness. Now let's step into something a little more dramatic.
Here I am, honey.
11. Ronnie Dyson. I Don't Want to Cry. Early 70s with late 60s soul DNA. Now technically, Ronnie Dyson's version of I Don't Want to Cry hit in 1970, a few years after 67, but the feel of it is straight out of the late 60s soul playbook, so it belongs in this emotional universe. The song itself goes back to 1961, written by Luther Dixon and Chuck Jackson, but Dyson's take gave it a fresh, aching tenderness. Ronnie was known more for his Broadway work and his pure, ringing tone than for stacking up big hit singles. I Don't Want to Cry didn't get the spotlight that Motown and Stax Giants were getting, but it lives in that quiet storm space, strings curling like cigarette smoke, drums brushing lightly like someone pacing across a dark room. Dyson's voice sounds like a man trying very hard not to break in front of you. It's not dramatic heartbreak, it's private heartbreak. The kind you whisper through so nobody hears you cracking. This is the kind of record that played on late-night stations, when the car radio was low, the windows fogged, and the outside world felt very far away. And if that was the quiet ache, the next track turns the volume, and the fire, back up. "10. Aretha Franklin. Sweet, Sweet Baby. Since You've Been Gone. 1968. Recorded in 67. By 1967-68, Aretha Franklin was stepping fully into her crown. Fresh at Atlantic Records, working with producer Jerry Wexler and the Muscle Shoals crew, she wasn't being molded anymore. She was leading. Sweet, Sweet Baby. Since You've Been Gone came out in early 1968, recorded in 67 for the Lady Soul album, and it sometimes gets overshadowed by Respect, Chain of Fools, and Think. But this record is pure Aretha power, piano-driven, gospel-rooted, full of love bruised and love burning. You can hear the church in every phrase, the breath before the note, that slight growl when she pushes the emotion right to the edge. The band behind her plays like they're following her spirit in real time, not the other way around. Horns punctuate in all the right spots. The rhythm section pushes and releases just enough, and the background vocals feel like a congregation shouting amen under their breath. This is Aretha in her blossoming era, confident, expressive, singing not just to impress, but to testify. If that brought the fire, the next one brings a velvet soft slow burn, made for leaning close under dim lights. "9. The Marvelettes. When You're Young and in Love. 1967. By 1967, the Marvelettes were Motown veterans, one of the original girl groups that helped define the label's sound. But with the Supremes dominating the spotlight and new acts crowding the charts, some of their later gems didn't get the shine they deserved. When You're Young and in Love, released on Tamla, is one of those records. The production is a dream. Soaring strings, gentle tambourine, and that perfectly pocketed Motown bass line carrying everything like a heartbeat. Wanda Young's lead vocal is soft but certain, tender without ever feeling fragile. She isn't belting, she's remembering. That's the magic. This isn't young love painted as a fairy tale. It's that warm, dizzy flutter in your chest when everything feels possible. The kind of love that makes the world seem bigger and safer at the same time. It did modest numbers on the charts, but emotionally, it's timeless. It still feels like prom night under soft lights. If that was youthful and floating, the next one hits a little deeper. Love with some miles on it. 8. Etta James, Tell Mama. Recorded 1967. By the late 60s, Etta James had already lived several musical lives. Blues shouter, jazz interpreter, one of chess record's fiercest voices. Tell Mama, recorded at Fame Studios in Muscle Shoals in 1967, was a comeback moment that reminded everybody exactly who she was. You can practically feel the room, cigarette smoke hanging in the air, hot amps humming, musicians who didn't need sheet music to find the pocket. The song moves, part plea, part warning, part don't play with me. Etta's voice cuts through like a knife wrapped in silk, raspy on the edges, pure flame in the center. The horns stab in all the right places, the rhythm section stays low and mean, and the backing vocals slide in like a knowing nod from across the bar. Behind the music, Etta was fighting personal battles and an industry that didn't always know what to do with a woman that powerful. You can hear that lived life in every phrase. When she says "Tell Mama," she's not just singing, she's opening the door and letting the truth pour out. We've had grit and fire. Now let's ease back into something warm, romantic, and quietly powerful. 7. Gladys Knight and the Pips, Everybody Needs Love, 1967. In 1967, Gladys Knight and the Pips were still just outside Motown's main spotlight, respected, admired, but not yet mentioned in the same breath as the Temptations or the Four Tops. Everybody Needs Love, the title track of their Motown debut album, shows exactly why their time had to come. The song moves with easy grace, not rushed, not showy, just true. Gladys has that honey and steel tone, warm enough to comfort, strong enough to testify. She doesn't force the emotion, she is the emotion. Meanwhile, the Pips answer like only family can. Tight harmonies, perfectly timed echoes, little moves you can almost see, even without video. This is everyday soul, the kind of record that plays while you're cleaning the house on a Sunday afternoon. Windows open, sunshine drifting in. Beneath all the heartbreak, longing, and celebration, this song quietly reminds you, love is the thread tying everything together. If that felt like a warm embrace, the next track brings a rawer, more urgent kind of longing. 6. Carla Thomas, I'll Always Have Faith in You, 1967. Before the big 70s radio hits from Stax, you had records like Carla Thomas's I'll Always Have Faith in You, released in 1967, and often overshadowed by her earlier hit B.A.B.Y. The production is classic Memphis soul, gentle guitar, soft horns, a rhythm section that keeps things steady and low, while Carla pours her heart out on top. Her voice is rich but vulnerable, sounding like someone who has been disappointed, but refuses to let go of hope. This isn't flashy soul, it's steady soul. The kind of song people played on small home record players late at night when the house was finally quiet. A record passed from hand to hand, recommended with a simple, "You gotta hear this one." If that one lifted your spirit, don't move. We're only halfway through. Mid-roll hook, CTA. If these forgotten soul gems from '67 are stirring up memories, go ahead and hit that like button. It really helps keep this music alive for the next generation. And stay with me. The next 5 tracks hit even deeper. 5. Kim Weston, I'm Still Loving You, mid-60s Motown deep cut. Now here's a record the Northern Soul crowd knows very well, but a lot of casual listeners missed. Kim Weston's I'm Still Loving You, a mid-60s Tamla single that kept spinning on dance floors and turntables well into '67 and beyond. Kim was already known for Take Me in Your Arms, Rock Me a Little While. But this track is a different shade. Softer, more vulnerable, but still full of strength. Clean guitar strums, steady drums, and those Motown backing vocals make the whole thing feel like a memory you keep replaying. This isn't desperate pleading. It's enduring love. The kind that keeps the porch light on, even when you're not sure someone's coming back. It sounds like a late-night AM radio song while somebody drives home slowly, windows cracked, city lights passing like slow stars. If that was gentle devotion, the next one pulls us back onto the dance floor and into full swing. 4. The Marvelettes, You've Got What It Takes, late '60s Motown cut. Here's a second appearance from the Marvelettes. And trust, this one hits a different shade of soul. Their version of You've Got What It Takes, cut during their later Motown years, didn't shine as brightly on the charts as their early smashes like Please Mr. Postman, but it shows exactly why they stayed so beloved. The production is playful and mid-tempo, all bounce and charm. Wanda Young sings like she's flirting with the melody itself. Light touches, sly smiles between the notes. The background vocals add that grin-inducing sweetness we barely hear anymore. It's youthful romance, but with a cool confidence, like leaning across the back booth of a diner saying, I know what I bring, and you do too. It feels like a summer sidewalk in the late '60s, sunglasses, soda bottles, and the whole world opening up. And now, it's time to go deeper. The next track is a soul confession that moves from the chest straight down to the bones. 3. The Temptations, I Wish It Would Rain, recorded 1967, hit 1968. Recorded near the end of '67 and released as the year turned, I Wish It Would Rain came from a place of very real sorrow. Lyricist Roger Penzabene wrote it while grieving the breakdown of his marriage, and every line sounds like someone trying to hold together a heart that's already cracked. David Ruffin sings it with that unmistakable ache, not shouting, just letting the sadness sit there, heavy and honest. The production is classic Motown, strings swelling like gathering clouds, tambourine like the first raindrops, bass keeping everything rooted while the storm builds. This wasn't just a performance, it was lived pain. When we say soul music came from real experience, this is exactly what we mean. You can see the image in your mind, someone standing at a window, forehead against the glass, praying for the sky to finally match what's happening inside. If that was heartbreak laid bare, the next track is pure velvet. Love slow, warm, and steady. 2. Betty Swan, Make Me Yours, 1967. Now let's think back to 1967 and one of those records that lived everywhere. Kitchen radios, summer porches, neighborhood block parties. But somehow, didn't get the long-term spotlight it deserved. Betty Swan's Make Me Yours, released on Money Records, went all the way to #1 on the R&B chart and into the Pop Top 40. But a lot of people only remember it when it starts playing. Her voice here is tender, but assured, like someone who knows exactly what she wants and isn't afraid to say it. The bass glides, The guitar shimmers like sunlight on a kitchen floor, and the arrangement has that warm West Coast soul feel. Soft, breezy, intimate. Behind the scenes, it was cut in a small Los Angeles studio where the air conditioning barely worked. Musicians sweating, tape rolling, everyone locked into the groove. And when Betty sings, "I Want to Be Loved," it doesn't sound like a plea. It sounds like a promise. This is the kind of record that feels like resting your head on someone's shoulder at the end of a long day. Quiet, but unforgettable. And even with all that, nothing quite prepares you for the heart waiting at number 1. 1. There is a balm in Gilead. Traditional spiritual, as sung by community choirs in 1967. Our final song isn't a chart single or a radio hit. It's a hymn. The traditional spiritual "There is a Balm in Gilead." In 1967, if you were in the right church, the right community center, the right basement gathering after a long week, you heard this song and you felt it. Choirs from California to the Deep South were singing their own arrangements, sometimes captured on tiny local gospel labels, sometimes never recorded at all. Piano a little distant, tambourine slightly loose, hand claps not perfectly in time, but perfectly human. The lead voice didn't sound like someone reading lyrics. It sounded like someone testifying. 1967 was a turbulent year. Marches in the streets, new worlds trying to be born, old wounds finally being confronted. And in the middle of all that noise, songs like "There is a Balm in Gilead" carried people quietly, steadily, without applause. Some music is meant to entertain. Some music is meant to help you breathe. This was the breathing kind.